Welcome back to the Go to Go podcast, man. Episode 106, week 5 of the NFL season right around the corner. Got another segment, hot or not, and then we're gonna dive into our week 5 pick'ems, man. Why don't you go ahead, start us off with your week 4 hot or nots?
All right, well, I just got one for you this week. I like to stay in your AFC North, so I'll just ask you this one, man. Hot or not, Derrick Henry was the best offseason acquisition from this past offseason. Like the best pickup.
I'm gonna say it is a hot take coming into the season. A lot of people thought so. Last week was the first time we saw King Henry really get into form, utilize the run game well. LJ had to do nothing. The Ravens steamrolled, another AFC favorite over there in the East with no issues whatsoever. Want to see a little bit more from Derrick Henry. He's getting up there in age in terms of running backs, but best one yet. I gotta wait and see if they keep utilizing him like they did in this last week because the first couple weeks saw a heavy dose of Justice Hill in the past game. Derrick Henry wasn't getting as many carries, or nor was he as effective as he was last week, and basically putting the team on his back offensively. So,
So you don't think what he did in Dallas was, I think he scored a touchdown in every single game.
I mean,
He rushed
I
for like 200 in Dallas, 200 again last week. You still not buying it?
nah, a little Ravens hate, but just not yet. We'll
All right.
see. Long season. Past couple seasons, he's been banged up in and out. We'll see. He stays healthy with that workload he's had his whole career. So, I mean, it looks scary if you're playing the Ravens. That's all I'm gonna say right now. Best
Done.
one yet, I think. Would you count as
Ooh,
rookie as an acquisition?
no, not rookies. 'Cause I'm
Nah,
talking
no
about like
rookies.
free agents or trade. Yeah.
Free agents or trade. I'm trying to think top of my head. Best free agent or
Sam
trade
Darnold.
signing. Sam Darnold, more valuable. This is looking good, man. Came in and led the way, and the Vikings look like a powerhouse.
Rodgers, he didn't play last year.
Rodgers, no. Especially after the way the Jets played this week, is it can't be Rodgers at this point, especially after what Garrett Wilson said, the offense not changing, not trying to shake things up.
Yeah, but that was
It's tough, man, when your wide receiver one comes out and says it, and he's not getting the workload either. I mean, that's tough. It really might be. I'm trying to think of other free agent signings that have made a splash this season.
DeAndre Swift finally getting it going after a month.
Uh, Roshan Johnson was looking good out there too. So
Yeah, bro, he was averaging like 1 yard per carry before last week.
I was looking at his carries and there was a lot of them in the negatives. And
Yeah,
I was like, it
not
can't
good.
be, bro. I watched some film of him reading gaps and it was pretty bad. So
Oh, I know who it is, bro. It's your UCF legend, bro. Big game Gabe. Gabe Davis down
nah,
there in Jacksonville.
he's not doing anything either in that offense. It's tough, man.
Bro, it might actually just be Sam Darnold, fam,
Yeah.
realistically. Or you say Joe Flacco?
I mean, he came in solid performance, carried that Colts team to a win. You can't.
Basically just revived Michael Pittman's career. Josh Downs is looking good. Like
Yeah, Josh Downs might be a start next week, the way everything was looking.
if Flacco's playing, yeah.
I mean, that first drive, AR was looking good. I
Kirk
will have to say. Yeah, he is hurt, but
said Kirk,
what
Kirk Cousins, Falcons.
Kirk Cousins, I'm trying to look at this right now, and it's not looking too promising. A lot of re-signings. I'll tell you what, it's definitely not Tyler
Stephon
Huntley. After,
Diggs.
no, not even close. And not gonna be my boy Jerry Judy either. Dang.
Yeah,
Justin
fam.
Fields might be in the is he in the conversation?
Fam, I feel like at this point he has to be. just because the Steelers have been. I mean, they had a tough week this past week, but before that, he's playing mistake-free football. And even though they lost, he had his best game. Like if he doesn't
Yeah.
like fumble the ball trying to play Twister, you know, they have a chance.
Um, I mean, you could say whatchamacall hold up, I just had Mason Rudolph after last night. After
Mason
what I
Rudolph.
witnessed last night,
Wow.
I mean, Alex Madison's been solid for the Raiders. He kind
Or is it whoever's gonna trade for Devontae Adams? Is that in the future
of
the best pickup?
I mean, it should be. I know the Commanders really want him a lot. Him with Jane Daniels. I wanted to say Jane Daniels originally in
I
terms
mean, I
of,
mean, obviously, yeah, but that's a rookie. You don't go best draft pick. I mean, it's hard to argue that right now.
well, I mean,
OBJ, best offseason acquisition.
yeah. All right, I'm going Sam Darnold for now. I'm just gonna stick with Sam Darnold. I don't see too many
Yeah,
options out here.
I think right
But
now the way this Vikings team is playing, I mean, I think he's what like I think he's fifth right now at this point in MVP odds. Like Sam Darnold, he's been doing his thing in his Vikings offense. Kevin O'Connell scheming him up. He's got the weapons. Addison came back last week. He looked good. Justin Jefferson, I mean, when you're the best receiver in the league, you're gonna get open. You're gonna get touchdowns in. I think low key, another name we forgot to bring up, Aaron Jones, both on the Vikings. He's been
hmm
low key a really good addition for that Vikings offense as well. So the Vikings being coached up really well over there. I think Sam Darnold might actually be the best offseason acquisition through 4 weeks of the league so far.
Yeah, in the last 2 weeks since Andy Dalton's been in the lineup, Deontay Johnson has looked like a good pickup for the Panthers so far. So we'll see what
But he
that
was there last week too, wasn't he? Oh, you
last
talking
year,
about
nah.
Deontay Johnson? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought you were talking about Andy Dalton. Yeah,
No, but
we'll
yeah, I
see.
mean,
We'll see. He's been all right, but
long
I don't think
season.
he's.
Last 2 weeks he's been putting in some work. But so is that whole team offensively. They've been putting up some
But you also
points.
got to look at who they playing though. They beat the Raiders, and then last week they
They
played
played the
the Bengals.
Bengals. Yeah, sorry,
Who,
defense.
yeah, we know how you feel about the Bengals.
All right, man. So I'm gonna jump into my hot or not. That's it for you, right?
Yeah,
So Sam Darnold, best free agent acquisition so far through 4 weeks. That's what we're saying.
Sam Darnold over Derrick Henry. I think it's me personally. I think it's close. You could go either way. But if
Yeah.
you're gonna say Sam Darnold, I'm not gonna argue. If you're gonna say Derrick Henry, I'm not gonna argue.
And end of
He's
the
literally
season, it'll probably be Derrick Henry. I mean, just the better player throughout his career, consistent wise. Um, so first one, hot or not, Jaden Daniels will finish as the best quarterback of this draft class,
like this season or like career wise.
career wise.
I mean, it's not a hot take at all. You see what's going on right now. I mean, coming in, they both had relatively high ceilings. Not a lot of people thought Caleb Williams' ceiling was a lot higher. But I mean, just look at how Jaden Daniels is playing so far throughout his career. I mean, what is it? Like the highest completion rate through the first 4 games, protecting the ball really well. That offense is scoring points, touchdowns, and field goals. If you watch Daniels, it just seems like he always has the answer to whatever the defense is giving him. Doesn't seem like he's back there holding onto the ball, running around like you see sometimes with Caleb Williams. Jaden Daniels, when he runs, is decisive. Either he's in the pocket, getting rid of the ball quick, going through his reads. So I mean, yeah, he Jaden Daniels right now is looking like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You could argue he's looking better than C.J. Stroud did last year. Like that, I feel like that's not a hot take right now. The way Jaden Daniels is playing and the way they're winning games too. So, I thought you was gonna say best in the division. I was gonna say, yeah,
I'd
right now I
take him,
would say he's
yeah.
the best quarterback in the NFC East, but
Yeah.
overall versus Caleb Williams in the league, I mean, I
Career
don't know how
wise.
you career wise, I don't know how you could say like at this point from what we've seen so far, Jaden Daniels isn't like going to be a better quarterback throughout his career. Explosiveness, he seems to be one of the more explosive running quarterbacks, and then passing wise, it looks to seem like he can make every single throw that he's been asked to so far. So I mean, we've seen the deep shots. Terry McLaurin 2 weeks ago against the Bengals. We've seen the intermediate, over the middle. He's not one of those quarterbacks that are just, targeting the sidelines. And I know that was a knock for him coming out of LSU is, he was just throwing slot fades to Malik Neighbors every drive or just throwing go routes to Brian Thomas Jr. And I mean, we can talk about how good those guys have looked early in their career, but Jaden Daniels has been targeting all areas of the field, shallow, intermediate, and then we love the big explosive plays down the field, and he's been able to hit all of those and what he brings in the run game. And I don't want to knock Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams still has a chance to be a really good quarterback. I think there's still a chance he can be better than Jaden Daniels. But right now, from what we've seen, yeah, I mean, I think it's quite obvious that Jaden Daniels has a chance to be better than Caleb Williams right now.
Two things bouncing off that. CJ Stroud last season started off pretty bad. I mean, people were like, yeah, this is why his test score was so low, this and that. He had a slow
Oh,
start
yeah, I forgot. Yeah, the test
to
score.
that
Yeah.
amazing rookie year. He ended up finishing with Jane Daniels on the other hand, started hot. But do you think the Commanders might have another RG3 situation when RG3 came into the league, explosive, big runner? Jaden Daniels takes a lot of hits, man. So that injury concern, I mean, do you see any correlation there?
I mean, I feel like that's always going to be looming, but it's really something you can't predict is injuries. I mean, prior to that, I think they were playing Seattle in Washington that playoff game or whatever when RG3 got hurt. But prior to that, I mean, him and Andrew Luck, it was looking like pick 1 and 2. You couldn't go wrong with either one. RG3 was
Hmm.
like you mentioned, looking super explosive. It's just the injuries caught up to him. He wasn't able to move around and use that explosiveness like he was able to early on in his career. So I mean, yeah, there's obviously like a possibility. There's a world where Jaden Daniels gets banged up and, mobility wise, he's not the same. He's not as explosive and he's not able to, use his legs and move around. But I mean, you could say that with anybody at really. So, I mean, just because it's the same jersey, same mobile quarterback, same style of play, like, yes, obviously you see the similarities and some of the hits do like you just or like, is he going to get up after this? So that's definitely a concern. But I mean, you can't really, especially if you're a Washington Commanders fan, like that's like the last thing you want to think about right now. You just want to be in the moment and enjoy finally having solid, good quarterback play. So, I mean, yeah, obviously there's some similarities, but like I said, it's injuries, man. You can't really predict that. So we're not wishing that on nobody.
Yeah, definitely. Keeping it, I'm gonna go AFC East here, man, and I'm gonna hit you with one of the Dolphins questions, man. Hot or not, the Dolphins need more than just Tua back in the lineup.
I'm going to say that is a hot take. I think and this can go different ways. And this might, like me saying it's a hot take, might sound good, but in reality, I think it might be bad just because of the structure of that offense and that team. And, you've kind of been, ahead of the curve on this. You've always been talking about, like, oh, I hate like these little outside runs and like we don't just do a regular handoff or, these RPOs. Like it's too much. Like it's not as, like, it's just not a good scheme. And I think when you have Tua in there, it's a great scheme, and Tua can make it work. It's just when you have the question marks with the injury with someone like Tua, there's really no one else backup wise that you can plug in and run that offense at the same level. So when you have guys like Skylar Thompson come in or Tyler Huntley, it looks night and day because they're just not on the same level in terms of running the scheme for Tua. So I believe if you put Tua back into that offense, we'll still see, the success that they've had the past couple years with, the quick explosive plays, hitting Tyreek deep down the field, the crossing routes with Jalen Waddle, the running backs getting open in space. But that's because of how good Tua is in that system and his decisiveness and how quick he gets the ball out. But when you have someone else in that system that, maybe isn't as good of a processor or doesn't know the playbook as well, or doesn't have certain connections with those receivers, then I just don't think you're going to get nowhere near the same product. And I know there are some question marks on the interior offensive line. Maybe you want to see, the receivers show more heart out there, or some of the running backs, be a little more physical. But at the end of the day, I think the Dolphins are really confined into that one system, and until McDaniels kind of shows that he can adapt and evolve outside that system, kind of like we saw what they did up in Green Bay when you lost Jordan Love, but Malik Willis was able to come in and they pretty much LaFleur just flipped the scheme entirely, and for 2 weeks they were able to have success in a completely different way from what we saw Jordan Love and that Packers team look like. So far, it kind of looks like McDaniels is still trying to keep that, the bones of that Tua system where I just don't think really anyone else in this league not starting wise can run that system. Like I'm sure if you put other elite quarterbacks in this Mike McDaniel system, they'll be able to run it. But in terms of, a backup quarterback or someone who isn't as, good of a processor as Tua or someone as decisive as Tua, yeah, I don't think y'all gonna have a lot of success. So I would say it is a hot take that, this offense needs more than Tua. I think if Tua's back in there, they'll be right back on track offensively. Now, defensively, that's a whole nother story. I'll let you get into that when we get to the Dolphins or whatever. But yeah, I think if you put Tua back in that offense, the Dolphins offense will be good. It's just the question marks around it. With the injury, can he stay healthy? And when he goes down, like what are the answers? That's the big question there for Miami.
Yeah, and you mentioned the running backs, physicality. Raheem Mostert, obviously the most physical out of any of those guys. He's been out the lineup. You could see how bad they're missing him. They built this lineup around speed. I'll get into that and the structure of which they built this team. Knew it would cause problems. I've said it before, but it's gonna take us to our week five pick'ems last week. Once again, both of us sucked. I went 7-9. You went 4-12.
Yeah, this is might have
This
been like
is
my worst week picking like ever in my life.
yeah, and
This NFL season, man. It's just
I
you
think
can't really get a grip on it.
last week was the first time you dipped under 500 in our pick'ems through.
Yeah,
Um,
this is what the third season, right?
yeah, it's third year, and you're 26
First
and
time I'm on.
38.
Yeah.
I'm 32 and 32. So
Sorry, man. Listen, it's a long season. We
it
can
is
get
a
back
long
right.
season. And yeah, I mean Thursday night football, man. We got NFC South showdown between the Bucks and Falcons in Atlanta. You're picking this one.
We just mentioned like this season is like all over the place. I think this Bucks versus Falcons game is just like a perfect example of
Flip a coin.
who do you pick, bro? Like who's gonna win this game? Um, the Bucks coming off of a really impressive win against Philly at home, but as you dig into that and as you look, deeper in the bones, like, is that really that impressive of a win? You look at the Falcons, like, I mean, if you don't have a muffed punt by Shaheed and his like at his own 5 yard line and you score off of that, like, do you guys win this game? So, I mean, you were spotted a free 7 points at the beginning of the game, so a lot of question marks on both sides of the ball. I just think I like what I saw from Tampa Bay more in terms of offensively. I mean, you'll be the first one to attest. Like when Baker's on, when Baker's feeling it, when that first read is there, he looks elite, man. And Baker can really, run that first read, get the ball out quick, good arm strength, arm talent to get to where he's going. And those guys on the outside are still playing at a real high level. You look at Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and I sneakily think like Bucky Irving might be the best backup running back in the league. It's looking like he should just take Rashad White's job at this point. Whenever he
That's
runs,
what they've been saying.
he looks a lot more explosive, way more yards per carry. He can get involved in the passing game as well. So I like what the Bucks have on offense. The Falcons, some question marks there. I think Bijan might be banged up, and he's been a little underwhelming as well this year. Not really getting him involved as much. And Algier is showing some flashes. Another backup that he could probably start on a couple of other of these teams. So offensively, Falcons, Kyle Pitts starting to look like a him problem at this point, like not getting involved. I'm not sure. I mean, us watching Florida football and stuff, he was like an animal at UF, bro. Like no one could guard him. Now coming into the league, it's a lot different. But I think the Bucks coming off a short week, I think they're the better team. Top balls in that defense once again gave Jalen Hurts problems. So they'll definitely scheme some stuff up. I imagine they'll look at that week one tape to see what the Steelers did against Kirk, where they were getting constant pressure at him. They like to blitz down there in Tampa in that top bowl scheme. So I'd imagine you'll see a lot of blitzing to get Kirk Cousins off of his game. So I think the Bucks win a close one. I mean, I forgot we didn't do the spreads this week, but I'm sure I think the spreads like was it? It's at Atlanta. It's probably I think the Bucks are favored by like a point, or the Falcons are
It's
like
probably
you
like
could say
minus
Bucks two
one,
and a half.
1.5.
No, you could say Bucks 2.5 or Falcons 2.5, and I feel like either way, like it's a solid line. So, um, yeah, just give me the Bucks in
Falcons
this
minus
one.
1.5.
Exactly, yeah. So, give me the Bucks in this one. Divisional matchup. I think if I had to pick one team in this division to be the best team at this point, I might say the Bucks, depending on what we see. The Panthers, not much there. Falcons, and then we just saw the Saints, drop two in a row. So give me the Bucks, man. I think they're the hottest team right now in this division, and that's not saying much. And this might not even be the worst division.
Yeah, I think the Bucks are the best team, but I am going ahead to pick the Falcons. We both know how hard it is to sweep division opponents in a season. This game being in Atlanta, Atlanta coming off their win against the Saints. And you mentioned that Shaheed, muff punt, the Eagles, um, and their game certainly didn't help against the
Yeah,
Bucks the
they got
way
a
they
bye week,
played.
so we're just not going to talk about them.
Okay, my bad.
So.
But I'm saying like the
Yeah, yeah,
Saints,
yeah, yeah.
the Eagles were helping them out. We don't have to discuss that, but the Bucks had an easy game while the Saints were able to hang around still. It's about Kirk Cousins getting back right. Another game removed from that injury. And then Kyle Pitts also had the injury this offseason. I believe he had surgery. I'm not too sure, but he does not look like, yeah, the Kyle Pitts that was drafted top 10 in the league to be. So I mean, hey, they're finding ways to get it done. Bijan, if he's healthy, will he get involved? We saw the Lions with Jahmyr Gibbs kind of do the same thing that Bijan did last year. Gibbs is getting a lot more involved in that Detroit offense. You'd like to see Bijan get that same workload, even though Algier, very good running back, but you draft Bijan to be the guy. Draft him to be a workhorse to carry that franchise as the RB1. Want to see a little bit of that, but like you said, I mean, if the Bucks win, the Bucks win. I'm not sitting here shocked at all. I'm just taking the Falcons. I think it's a coin toss game, Thursday night football, usually low scoring. I'm gonna take the home team for this one. It's gonna move
That's
us.
also a good point you mentioned real quick with Montgomery and Gibbs. Like, I don't know why the Bucks or the Falcons aren't using their two backs like that. I feel like Algier and Bijan Robinson are two very similar, thunder and lightning, backfield matchups. I mean, both Montgomery and Gibbs are just like running out
Elite.
of this world right now. They're both having a lot of success, and I feel like down in Atlanta, if you kind of utilize them the same, you could see similar success because talent wise, I don't think they're too far off, and they're starting and backup running backs. So that'd be interesting to see if they get both of them more involved.
Yeah, definitely. Jets Vikings in Minnesota. Sam Darnold for MVP agenda in a revenge game.
This is
Form
actually a
against.
London game, first London game.
Oh, you're right. You're right. 9 o'clock Eastern, I think. So 10 won't be up for that one. I'll tell you what. I don't know how the West Coast people do it, but Jets Vikings, your pick.
I mean, can you pick against the Vikings at this point, man? Like defensively, I know they kind of gave up a bunch of yards and some points last week to the Packers, but I mean, coming out, they just pretty much controlled that game from the start. I mean, this defense is flying all over the place. Turnovers, sacks, they're getting pressure on the quarterback. They're getting a bunch of deflections, fumbles, like everything you want to see from a defense. This Minnesota Vikings defense is doing it, flying around on the football, playing fast, tackling well. And then offensively, Sam Darnold is just playing a little bit more than complimentary football. He's making some big throws down the field. We kind of touched on him already. I feel like the way this Vikings team is playing right now is just like the epitome of modern football. Fast physical defense and the offensive side of the ball, they're running the ball and taking shots down the field. Like that's how you win in today's NFL and control the game. So Vikings are the hottest team in the league right now, undefeated. I think they go across the pond and they keep the streak going. The Jets, I mean, you lose to the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix, who had what, like 60 yards passing. some like crazy stat like that. I guess there's one point in the game where Cortland Sutton had more receiving yards than Bo Nix had passing. Like it's just a crazy stat, bro. This Broncos team or this I said Cortland Sutton, I'm tripping. This Jets team and Aaron Rodgers, you mentioned Garrett Wilson, they're just not on the same page, man. They got two solid running backs, not really getting them involved, and it's just seeming like kind of similar to the Eagles where there's talent on the field. You have guys that have made plays before, but you start looking at the coaching and the structure of that team and ask, are they putting guys in the right position? Are guys living up to certain draft capital or where you bring guys in at? So, yeah, we can't beat if you can't beat the Broncos at home with the way Bo Nix and that team was playing. I know it was against a tough defense, but it's not looking good for the Jets right now. So against the Vikings, who are the hottest team in the league, I think they keep rolling.
Yeah, Nate Hackett, offensive play caller in New York, not shaking things up, man. Kind of looks like a little bit of that Denver situation. Robert Saleh, you got to take a look at the coaching right now because the Jets have it. Mike Williams, he was looking good out there. Um, the whole receiver room, Garrett Wilson obviously not getting involved as much as you want, but top down, that offense should be thriving, and they're just not whatsoever clicking. You got to point fingers somewhere. Is it Rodgers? Is it Hackett? Is it, the running backs not getting involved last week? I mean, Brees Hall is supposed to be, the guy, and then you get Allen as RB2 who fell in the draft and he looks phenomenal. He could be starting running back probably somewhere else too. And both of those guys, I mean, I think Brees Hall really struggled last week to get anything going against that Denver
Yeah.
front. Allen, on the other hand, he looked decent out there, but it looks bad for the Jets and the Vikings. You mentioned them, the hottest team in the NFL, maybe. Give me Sam Darnold across the pond, revenge game against his former team that was drafting him, and the ghost of Sam Darnold. He's already won at MetLife this year against the Giants. Now he gets to
Yeah.
play the Jets, so it's probably a little bit sweet for Sam Darnold. He's rolling, you know, sat behind a couple of years, backup quarterback, gets another shot, and he's made the most of his opportunities. Can't argue with the Vikings offense, defense clicking on every single cylinder, and you can't pick against them, especially what you saw from the Jets last week, because it was abysmal. I know they had a chance to kick that field goal at the end, and they in this, I mean, you're kicking at MetLife. That's what you got to expect.
Yeah.
You
Weather
can't put
too, it was a little rainy,
yeah.
not the best
Wind's
playing
always
conditions,
blowing out
but
there in Jersey.
I mean that's the MetLife for you, though, like you said.
Exactly. You can't leave it up to the kicker. So, especially in a game like that where you mentioned how bad Bo Nix was in that Denver offense. So, you lose a game like that, man. Now you play a Vikings defense that Broncos obviously no slouch on the defensive side of the ball, but this Vikings team is arguably the best up there, them and the Steelers right now. So,
Yeah, it's a lot different when you get stopped by the Broncos. You feel like there's a chance you can get back on the field without putting up any points. When the Vikings stop you,
exactly.
it's like, damn, we down seven now. Like, they're scoring points too to go along with getting stops.
Um, that game, Vikings favored 2.5. 9:30 a.m. Next game up, we got Panthers Bears in Chicago. Your pick for this one.
I'm gonna take the home team here, man. The Bears coming off a little momentum. They got a nice win against the Rams last week, and I think this is kind of what Caleb Williams needed. Run game got going. You mentioned Roshan Johnson looked good. Swift finally had his first good game, and then you kind of see what goes on where everything's not on Caleb Williams' shoulder. They're able to lean on that run game a little bit. I think the Chicago defense. We've talked about it a couple other times throughout the season so far. Week one basically won them this game, held Houston, to a low scoring game. I think like 17 points or something like that in week two. So we know this Bears defense is a solid unit, and you add on, the different aspects of a run game to take even more pressure off Caleb Williams' shoulder. I think temper expectations, pull the reins back a little bit, and just get him comfortable seeing the field. Don't put everything on his shoulders. And against this Panthers team, they haven't really showed me anything to where they can make life difficult for a quarterback outside of Gardner Minshew. I mean, he was still able to have some success against them, even though they won. So, I don't think they'll be challenged much defensively. And then offensively, yeah, it's not Bryce Young back there, it's Andy Dalton, but I don't think it's still moving the needle much. And against this Bears team at home, who I think have a solid defense, they'll be able to give them some trouble there on that side of the ball. And I think Caleb Williams, as long as he continues to play as mistake-free football, limit the turnovers, protect the ball, lean into that run game, and then get his playmakers on the outside involved. It's nice to see DJ Moore finally get in the end zone. They got some nice weapons there at tight end, Komet, Keenan Allen, and Rome. Maybe those guys are a couple more weeks removed from their injuries, a slow start to the season. So I think we see Caleb Williams play, maybe his best game as a pro. Maybe not number wise, you don't see the big numbers, but he's able to play within the system, get more comfortable. So I like the Bears here at home, kind of riding the momentum of their win last week.
Bears 3.5 point favorite in this one at Soldier Field. I mean, I love that Bears defense. DJ Moore finally touching the end zone. Like to see that as a DJ Moore stock owner in fantasy. But some they took the pressure off him. Swift, I don't expect him to have another game like that after
I
what I
don't
saw
blame
from
you.
weeks past. Uh, think they should go to Johnson as RB1s. He got more touches last week, probably getting more touches this week. Panthers defense scares me. With that being said, some reason I am taking the Panthers. The offense with Andy Dalton has looked much better. I know this Bears defense, it looks good. They got some good guys in the secondary, but the Xavier Legette getting in the end zone for his first career touchdown. I mean, they've got Chuba Hubbard going. They've got the running backs going. They've got Deontay Johnson going. The offense looks totally different with Andy Dalton at the helm, which is crazy at this point in his career. You know, so as a backup quarterback, we saw the Colts, Joe Flacco, what he did last year for the Browns, Andy Dalton doing the same thing for the Panthers in a division that, sort of still up for grabs. Got a lot of legwork to do. The Bears, I just they don't excite me on that offensive side of the ball whatsoever.
Yeah,
And
I don't blame you, but we have the chance. This is like the ultimate revenge game, Is this the DJ Moore revenge game for getting
uh,
traded? Or is this just like a Panthers organization revenge game for getting fleeced for the number one overall pick and everything they gave up? So this will be an interesting one. A lot of backstories, a lot of ties here between these two organizations in recent years.
very fair point. I mean, both of them kind of in the same boat in terms of franchises for the past few years, really struggling to get the ball rolling in the right direction. So maybe something shake up this year for one of them and start trending in the right direction. So yeah, give me the Panthers in this one. Next game up, man, we got the Cleveland Browns going to Washington, playing the red hot Commanders with Jane Daniels. You're picking this one.
Yeah, this is your team, so I'll keep my, part short and sweet. Commanders up there with the Vikings in terms of hottest teams in football. Especially on the offensive side of the ball. We already just talked about, how good Jaden Daniels is and the start he's gotten off to his career. The Browns, on the other hand, maybe the coldest team in football, is that fair to say? Up there with, your other team, the Dolphins. But hey, yeah, right now the Commanders are clicking on all cylinders. They're able to move the ball, score at will. Defensively, I think there's still some question marks there for the Commanders, but I mean, it's a lot easier to play defense when you always have a lead. So you don't really have to worry about the run game. You just know the other team's going to drop back and pass. Easier game script for the defense. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see them get challenged and when they really have to get a stop or really have to play defense or maybe play from behind. But I don't think that will be happening at all this week. I think the Commanders get a comfortable win here at home. Jaden Daniels continues his rookie historical campaign.
Yeah, I'll try to keep mine short and sweet as much as possible, but I'm picking the Browns, frankly, because the season's on the line, man. There's not much else to say. Um, I saw, I don't know if it was Friday Beers or what. They were like, Jameis Winston, please. Deshaun Watson was the second highest graded PFF. Offensive player last week. Really good game from Deshaun. Had amazing zip on the ball. He looked like a good quarterback in this league last week. And once again, I mean, the supporting cast letting him down. Amari Cooper leads the league in drops. Got Elijah Moore's dad tweeting on Twitter he's open. Well, when he is open, he drops most of those passes too. Jerry Judy's talking about he's out of shape. It's week 5 of the NFL season. How you not conditioned? Um, Defense, it looks bad. JOK, he's a bright spot once in a while. He had some struggles last game. They were able to run the ball, the Raiders. They were able to pick up 6 yards easily per carry. Dalvin Tomlinson not looking good in that interior. Myles Garrett, he's gonna do Myles Garrett things on too bad foot. The DB room not living up to expectations whatsoever. Forgetting about the defense at that point. It comes down to the offense. The offensive line, very questionable holding call on that 80-yard touchdown. Nick Harris. Uh, I mean, really, couple missed calls every time we play the Raiders. Seems like we get some missed calls, but that's the name of the game. Chalk it up. Kevin Stefanski once again, questionable play calling. Fourth down, you need 3 yards. The quick hitter's been working all game. He goes for a shot at the end zone when you need a first down to convert. The terrible play call. It needs to be better. Top down coaching, O line, the receivers need to play a lot better because Deshaun Watson played the best game of his season last week, and they couldn't capitalize. The 83% percentage in the red zone. The Browns are scoring a touchdown. They just can't get there. They can't get a first down. Some drives like it's it's bad. It's killing them. So
So my question for you, based off that, because I feel like at this point we've seen both ends of the spectrum in terms of, the Cleveland Browns being bad, which is kind of funny to say, but it's true. We've seen, the supporting cast around Deshaun Watson be good enough, and we've seen Deshaun Watson struggle really bad at times. But now it's over the past couple of weeks. You mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago, Deshaun Watson, played good enough to win that game. And then this week, he thought he played really good, and the supporting cast let him down. So as a Browns fan, having someone with the most guaranteed money in that contract, which one is more troubling to you? Which one are you most disappointing in? Is it Deshaun Watson not being good enough, and the team around looking good, or is it Watson living up to that or living up to the contract, and everyone else around him not playing up to par?
I think it's everyone else around him not playing up to par because he's been hated on since he's been a Cleveland Brown for not living up to that contract. It's not going to be a jump overnight to where you're like, wow, this guy looks like Pat Mahomes and tearing up the league. He's Tom Brady. You got to take baby steps. And I mean, he's playing well enough to get this team wins, and they're not helping him out, helping him progress to that next step. His last season against that Ravens team, he played phenomenal, won them that game. Also, the defense, they did score in that Ravens game and that comeback win last year. But the defense stood up, got a defensive touchdown, and Deshaun basically goes nearly the length of the field to put him in a position. And you got Kevin Stefanski calling boneheaded plays. The Jerome Ford breakout run, it was pure luck. That offensive line, they're getting no push. They're getting no open holes. The offensive line's bad. Deshaun Watson, I mean, he delivered some balls. He was throwing, he was getting like hammered in the pocket. He was getting laid out. And he delivered a amazing ball in between tight coverage. And it's just hard to see, man. You finally see some good plays out of him. You see drive killers, the penalties, the undisciplined team, always under Kevin Stefanski. I've said it, the penalties, undisciplined football at the end of the day. And that's what they play, man. Uh, and Stefanski, you always say it about your boy Sirianni. What does Sirianni do? Stefanski's supposed to be an offensive guru. He's supposed to be the play caller that gets this team going. First drives looked amazing. Late game play calling, late game situational awareness is maybe one of the worst in the league right now, next to my other favorite team, and that's just
Yeah,
horrible play
bro. I'm
calling in
not gonna lie,
general.
bro. I'm not gonna let you sit here and talk about how bad your head coach is when I'm an Eagles fan, bro. That's just not gonna
I'm
happen,
just
fam.
saying, like,
I would trade you straight up right now for Nick Sirianni. Like,
I
at
would too
least
if I
you
was
know
you.
Savansky can script a scoring drive, fam. Nick Sirianni don't even call plays, bro. He doesn't. And when you do have a scripted play, like you mentioned, the first drive of the game, yo, the Eagles are the only team in the league that haven't scored any
In the
points in the
first
first
quarter.
quarter. So yeah, I mean, he can't even do that, fam. So I mean, yeah, be grateful that your coach can do that, bro.
I'm not going to be grateful because that's 2 weeks in a row boneheaded play calling in the fourth quarter as a and Ken Dorsey, they bring him in to do certain things, certain looks, and they're still the lowest bottom, I think, five in pre-snap motion in the NFL. And that's what Deshaun Watson thrived on Clemson early on in his career in Houston. You saw him empty sets look good, but it's tough when you don't have an offensive line to block to get into those empty sets. I want to see them just better fourth quarter play calling, better situations, more disciplined football, which they don't play. Amari Cooper, like I said, most drops in the league by receiver. We lead the league in drops as a unit. Elijah Moore is not helping, certainly. Get his dad off Twitter because I was a big Elijah Moore fan when we got him. He gets open, but anytime his number's called, it seems like he drops a big pass that'd be a first down, move the chains, get the drive going, keep it pushing. It's bad. I'm gonna pick the Browns. The season's on the line, man. If they lose, I don't know what I'm just watching Red Zone. I don't even want to see the Browns on the TV screen the rest of the year. Next game up. Speaking of teams I really don't want to see on the screen is the Dolphins traveling to Foxborough to play the Patriots. Your pick.
Give me the Patriots at home. The only somewhat intriguing thing about this game is maybe we see Drake May for the first time starting this game. Maybe, but I mean, if I was a head coach, this would be a perfect opportunity for me to start him at against a depleted Dolphins team who hasn't led once in the entire season. Like, I mean, why not throw him out there? But regardless, matchup wise, everything going into this game, like you mentioned, I don't think you want to have either one of these teams on your TV right now. So, give me the home team and the Patriots. Really, all there is to it.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Patriots because at least the Browns could look good for the game and stay in tight windows. You lose to the Titans on prime time. I don't care if Tyler Huntley's your quarterback or what the situation is because it that's abysmal. Defense doesn't look right. Offense certainly doesn't look right. I like what you mentioned about the Packers. When Malik Willis came in, they revamped that offense for Malik Willis. Tyler Huntley, let's get a little Baltimore offense going, man. Get some big sets, get the running game going, get the read option going. And then, like you said, you thrive on those deep shots downfield, set up that play action for those deep shots to those speed guys like Tyreek Hill, like Jalen Waddle. Even with two in this offense, I told you it's one dimensional with the Mike McDaniel offense. You got a bunch of speed guys. You don't have any size on the outside. Really, Jonnu Smith's your best possession contested catch receiver you have. That's not good. It's just not good. And that offensive line's not good either. I said that when they didn't address it in the draft and they decided to go chop Robinson. Yeah, I don't know, man. They're looking to be mid at this point. So give me the Pats. Now Colts Jags next game up in Jacksonville. Your pick.
I'll take the Jags in this, kind of similar to your Browns, where the season's on the line. I mean, season's pretty much already over. You got Doug Peterson calling out the players on the podium, saying, he thought they called a good game. The players just got to execute. Which there might be some truth to that, but then again, you got to look at the head coach. You don't have him prepared. But big but, I'm gonna do like this might be like a first in goal to go history. I'm putting an asterisk next to my pick because if Joe Flacco is playing and we don't know yet, the information hasn't come out. Anthony Richardson might play, he might not. Looking like he's a game time decision. So I'm picking the Colts if Joe Flacco plays. If it's not Joe Flacco and we get a banged up Anthony Richardson out there, I think the Jags have a chance to win. But if we get Flacco, and he was out with the Colts and that weapons. We kind of saw what he was able to do in that game against a solid Steelers defense. I think they'll be able to find success against the Jaguars. So it's kind of a cop out pick, but I feel like it's not fair. We don't really know the full information at this point. So I think I should be able to get away with this pick.
Yeah, I think it might be the second time. I might have done that in the past, and maybe you have too, but first time officially on paper, I think. Give me the Colts. I'm just taking the Colts straight up. The Jags,
I don't
unlike the
blame
Dolphins, they lead football games and they find ways to
you.
lose them. So
Yeah.
outside of that Bills game, they've been in every single game. They've had chances to win. They
Hmm.
can't find a way. Brian Thomas looked great last week. Christian Kirk was connecting on some passes. ETN, I don't know what's going on in that running back room, what they're doing. Uh, he was on the sideline. Was he injured? Was he not? Big question mark there. They just don't seem to be clicking, and it's bad because they have so much potential. But once again, man, I don't care if AR's out there on one whatever hip. This is injury.
Yeah, hip pointer.
Joe Cool. It's give me the Colts, man, because they'll find a way to sell in. Doug Peterson's time's up in Jacksonville. Next one up, Bills Texans AFC playoff preview possibly in Houston NRG Stadium. Your pick.
I like the Bills here in this one on the road. I know they're coming off of an ugly loss against the Ravens on prime time, but just kind of seemed like the Ravens were the better team that night. Kind of fell behind literally on the very first play the Ravens touched the ball. You get the big Derrick Henry run. So behind the 8 ball the entire game. That is something we talked about earlier, during the season where it's like we want to see the Bills kind of play from behind against a better team. We saw them come back against the Cardinals. That was week 1, but before that, against the Jags and then against the Dolphins, it was kind of like they just walked to a victory. So I think it was, good for the Bills to get this first challenge out of the way early. They took a L, but I think they bounced back here against a solid Texans team who, you know, I think me and you were both kind of on this side to where we thought the Texans would take a small step back from last season. They looked really good. CJ Stroud looked really good last year. Now this year as a whole, the team doesn't look. They don't have that fiery underdog. No one expected us. Now everyone kind of knows they're a solid team, so they're getting everyone's best game. And you saw, they went up there against Minnesota, got blown out, and then last week against the Jags, nice, like you mentioned, come back, find a way to win, but they were pretty much losing to the Jaguars through 3 quarters, and it took a final drive from C.J. Stroud for them to go and win the game. And when you have a quarterback like Stroud, that's possible. But I just think this Bills team is a lot closer to the Vikings than they are the Jaguars. So I think it'll be closer to that Minnesota game. Now I think it will help. They're here at home. Nico Collins has been, a very, very bright emergence for that offense. It seems like that's CJ's go-to guy. Hopefully they get Joe Mixon back. That'll definitely help this run game, take some stress off of CJ Stroud in that passing game, kind of make it a little bit more even. But I mean, at this point, it's just hard to bet against Josh Allen the way he has that offense playing. No real superstars, no real big names out there. Just everybody making plays when their numbers called, and Josh Allen distributing the ball evenly. James Cook getting a little bit more involved on the ground. And we know that we do have the big Von Miller news that just came out, but I don't think he was that much of a factor to begin with. Greg Rousseau kind of stepped up as that number one pass rusher. So on the defensive side of the ball, I think they'll be solid. But I just think Josh Allen has a solid bounce back game against the Texans team. That is good. But I just think the Bills team are better at this point in the season.
Yeah, give me the Bills, man, and Stephon Diggs revenge game. Might be the
It's true.
Stephon Diggs effect, man, at this point, Uh
You said that.
Nico Collins, wide receiver one. We mentioned he's before the season even started, he's gonna be that number 3 guy possibly in that receiving room. You got Tank Dell coming off that injury, obviously. He's gonna be coming back at a performance dip with that injury. But I mean, give me the Bills, man. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs going at it. I think it's gonna be a good game. It's gonna get your popcorn ready type of game. But you mentioned that Bills offense, the way they looked. The Texans, almost got beat by the Jags, but Jags fashion, they lose. Yeah, they're back down to earth, man. They're looking like a human team versus what they were last year, with some holes that need to be addressed, especially with no Joe Mixon. You saw their game really drop off when they lean on Cam Akers as your running back one. So
Yeah.
give me the Bills. Want to see that defense play better for the Bills too, that run D. So might be something to look out for if Joe Mixon is back. AFC North matchup. Ravens go to Cincinnati to play the Bengals. Who you got?
This could be one of those trap games where like the Bengals just come out and dominate the Ravens. I mean, in typical AFC North fashion, like everybody can beat everybody in this division, but I just think the Ravens, I think they, after a very slow start to the season, 0-2, I think they finally found their true identity, getting that win in Dallas and then again against Buffalo, two solid teams, teams with playoff aspirations. I think they're just gonna run the ball, bro, and play physical defense. Like just give the ball to Derrick Henry, let Lamar run, get Lamar in space, dump off to Justin Hill, and their defense is good enough to hold teams to low scoring games. They're just gonna run the ball on everyone, just play super physical, and you see the drop offs with the guys like Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. They're not getting too involved, or it's because they don't need to when you have a running threat like Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the backfield. You can pretty much just do whatever you want on the ground. So, I mean, I think we'll see a lot more question marks, kind of how it always is for the Ravens down the line in the postseason. When you got to drop back and make those passes, can Lamar finally overcome, what it seems to be that roadblock for him right now? But in terms of the regular season and how they're going to play football, I mean, Lamar's always been really good in the regular season. He's been a winning quarterback. So I don't expect much to change here. That Cincinnati defense, they've been susceptible, man. We saw Jaden Daniels and a Commander offense go out there and put some points up. Panthers last week with Andy Dalton put some points up on them. So it's going to be interesting. I don't think they'll be able to outscore the Ravens because their Ravens defense is one of the better units. And then, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, like they're out there, but it just feels like that offense is still missing something. And it might be with the run game and Joe Mixon. So it'll be interesting to see how this game plays out. But right now, Ravens are rolling, man. I think they found their true identity, and I just think, especially the way this defense is playing for the Bengals, some injuries up front, that front seven is not as good. They're just gonna run the ball all over Cincinnati, play the time of possession game, and play physical defense.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna comment. You hit the nail right on the whatever the saying is right now. I can't even speak, but give me the Ravens, man. I don't think this is a trap game. I don't think the Bengals are legit. Even with that offense, you mentioned something's missing. Chase Brown and Zach Moss did not play bad last week. Granted, it was against the Carolina Panthers, but this Ravens team, they're looking good. They're looking like the AFC North team that they expected to be before the season started. So, and you mentioned that pass game hasn't even gotten going right now. And imagine they get that going, set up that read option, that play action is going to be so deadly down the field. And give me the Ravens on the road. Raiders Broncos AFC West matchup in Denver. Your pick.
A lot of noise going on right now with the Vegas Raiders. So give me the Broncos. This Broncos defense, I think, is going to be the best unit out of both of these teams in terms of offense, defense, special teams. This Broncos defense has played quietly, some of the best football in the league so far. So I think they'll give this Raiders offense a lot of trouble. And Bo Nix, we saw they were able to win with him throwing for 60 yards. So I'd imagine he doesn't have to do much more here against this Raiders team who, they might not be all that. The Jets might not be that much better than them, but I still think the Jets are a better football team than the Raiders. So it's like taking a step down here. You got all the buzz. Devontae Adams, he's requested a trade now. Antonio Pierce liking the comment, liking the post saying Adams played his last game, questioning a lot of guys making business decisions. Does he really have the locker room? Are those guys really motivated? Whereas on the Broncos side of the football, we know if anything, they're going to come and they're going to play some good defense. And then can Bo Nix just continue to be a game manager? And I think they'll be able to get it done here on the road or at home. So yeah, give me the Broncos.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Raiders here. And for the reason you said of Bo Nix 60 yards last week, I think those Devontae Adams comments are gonna get the Raiders going, man. You saw the adversity they went through last year. They play when, the media's chirping this and that. Antonio Pierce, I think he's a locker room guy. Is Devontae Adams the best player on their team? Quite possibly. Definitely offensively, but I mean, Jacoby Myers made some plays last week. Offensively, but I don't expect that Denver Broncos defense to carry him that hard because Bo Nix, he just doesn't. I don't even think you could say game manager. 60 yards, I don't think that's game manager approval.
Oh, the week before against the Bucks, he had a solid game.
Yeah, it came on the ground, to be honest. Him setting it up with the legs. Max Crosby might be back, might add a different factor. Got the Raiders with an upset road win with all the chirping. Antonio Pierce, like I said, players guy. I think he's gonna have these guys playing motivated out there in LA, or Vegas, excuse me. Um, Cards Niners, NFC West matchup and San Fran. Who you got?
Give me the Niners here. I mean, they've been one of the hotter teams as well, and I think a big reason for that is you've seen Brock Purdy step up. Early in the season we saw a lot of injuries, some guys not being able to play. Deebo Samuel, but there's George Kittle's missed the game here and there. The big news with McCaffrey, who might not be ready till like November now at this point. So a lot of moving pieces there offensively, but the one constant has been Brock Purdy, and he's been playing some really good football. He's looked good as well. So defensively, we know what they're going to bring. They're going to get after the passer, and Fred Warner is going to take away the middle of the field. Like that, that's just what they do. So, against the division rival in the Cardinals have been a fun team. A little inconsistent on offense and defensively, they have just been pretty much non-existent. I just think right now the 49ers are a clear-cut better team. So, especially if this game's at home, I think the 49ers get a pretty solid division win here.
I'm right there with you, man. Offense has shown flashes of being great. Defensively, we talk about it. Not much names on that defensive side of the ball, if any. They make some plays here and there. They do their job, but they're built to be an offensive team right now. And this Niners team, you mentioned it, Brock Purdy clicking on all cylinders. And Brandon Ayuk's been a non-factor in this offense so far. So
Yeah, and they've still
if
been able to produce.
exactly you add Ayuk into it, you get him going, that offense looks scary. Not to mention no Christian McCaffrey for it might be the regular season. Both Achilles now have tendonitis. Don't know how that happens. Not an NFL running back or a doctor, but it doesn't look good in terms of Christian McCaffrey. So the Niners, with that being said, they're steamrolling. Give me them against the Cardinals, especially at home. Giants, Seahawks, 12th man in Seattle. Your pick for this one.
I think the Seahawks win this game. Giants have been, competitive, but they're not really gonna go out there and make a lot of big wins. Malik Neighbors, unfortunately, in concussion protocol, and he's been like the one shining star on this offense. Seeing those shades of OBJ, maybe even a little better. Like, I mean, Prime Odell was so good, but Malik Neighbors, his explosiveness, he just catches everything. He's able to get open. And I think the bigger difference is they literally just force feed him targets. I think he's the target leader by 9 targets above the second guy, who I think might be Nico Collins. But pretty much everything runs through Malik Neighbors here on this Giants offense. And if it's not Malik Neighbors, to check down to Rondell Robinson. They pretty much get everything in that offense with Daniel Jones. And I mean, it works for fantasy, but in terms of real football, like you can kind of try to do your best to take that away. Force the Giants to run the ball. They have Devin Singletary, shut out 5.61 motor, solid running back, but not someone you're gonna lean on to carry your offense. And then Daniel Jones at the helm, some question marks there. Whereas on the other side of the ball for the Seahawks, you saw Geno come out, have the big game, throwing all over the place. Three really solid weapons you can rely on at this point with JSN, DK, and Lockett. All three of those guys can get open, elite receiving options there in that system for Geno. And then Kenneth Walker came back healthy and was able to run all over the best run defense in the NFL. So you had that explosive, element back to the backfield, Kenneth Walker, who, looks like one of the best just pure runners in the NFL, super athletic, super dynamic, and all those weapons they have on the offensive side of the ball with Geno at the helm. This team's going to put up some points, and I don't think the Giants will be able to keep up with Seattle at home. So give me the Seahawks.
Yeah, Neighbors 52 targets on the year, nine ahead of Nico Collins. Deontay Johnson surprisingly third. Wandell Robinson, he's fourth on that list with
Yeah, he's
38
up there too.
targets
So let's
himself.
just run
So
everything through them. Yeah,
yeah, that's the Giants offense. You mentioned they played some decent ball at this point, man. You can't be really too upset. I mean, you know that front four is going to be dangerous. That being said, the Seahawks played a great second half against the Detroit Lions after, having a tough time. That defense did not play well against Jared Goff. He was firing on all cylinders.
literally.
Gino Gino himself looked good, man. He threw for almost 400 yards. No, it's the Lions defense. Outside that front on the Giants, that defense is not much different. I would even say the Lions maybe have a better secondary. They turn the ball over more. Uh, but you mentioned Kenneth Walker looks like an absolute beast. That Seahawks team is totally different when he's in the lineup. You had that ground game. Charbonnet is a nice change of pace back. And those weapons on the outside, JSN, DK, Tyler Lockett got involved last week against the Lions. Give me the Seahawks at home, still one of the toughest environments to play in too. So it's just that Giants outside of Neighbors, you said making big plays. Wandell gets his targets, but really doesn't do too much. And 561 motor, he's good, but he's not a game changer like. Even though
Yeah,
he has had some moments, especially this year. Just don't think he's that guy. Packers, Rams in LA, your pick.
I like the Packers here, man. And the main reason is we get Jordan Love another week removed from that injury. Against the Vikings, rough to start, and you got to kind of think he got injured week one, didn't play a lot preseason. So last week was, like basically his second start. So as long as Jordan Love gets some more football under his belt, you get him back healthy in that system, I think this Packers team will be fine down the road. Showed a lot of heart, showed some fight, trying to come back there at the end against a good Vikings team. So they showed they can hang around and put up some points against pretty much any, you know, unit in the league, especially if you're doing it against a Vikings team where it seemed like it was over early. They could have just rolled over, came back, put up some points. So yeah, against a banged up Rams team who was like every single news to come out of that organization now is injury related with whether it's their receivers, guys on defense, offensive line, everyone's banged up. So they're just trying to make it to their bye week to get some of their guys back to hopefully play some of their better football later down in the year. Whereas I think the Packers, Christian Watson goes out, but you got some guys that'll step up. You got, Wicks, Dobbs, Jaden Reed stepped up, looking to be like a true number one there in that offense. So I think the Packers have a lot going for them, playing some feisty defense as well. They take the ball away. Give me the Packers here on the road.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. The Rams, I think they ran out of IR spots. So
They definitely did. Yeah.
yeah,
That's why
Cooper Cup
McCaffrey's
couldn't
not on
even
it. Or
yeah,
Cup, yeah.
Cup couldn't even get on IR. Give me the Packers, man. You mentioned Jordan Love. Hit hit it right on point, man. I mean, coming back, hasn't played much this year. Week one, he got hurt. Week two, I mean, the second start looked a lot better in terms of the second half. They were able to get it going, get on the same page. That Vikings defense was able to create a lot of turnovers, make it tough for the Packers. But I expect him to be just fine, even without Christian Watson against this Rams team so depleted. Give me the Packers. I think they're the better team. And Jordan Love, I think he gets back to, the MVP caliber preseason hype he had around his name. So road win, probably see more green and yellow out there anyways. Cowboys, Steelers in Pittsburgh. Who you got?
This is a tough one. I feel like these teams match up pretty evenly in terms of, they both have one strength and they both really lean into it. For Dallas, that's the passing game, and for the Steelers, it's their defense. And we kind of saw the defense get a little exposed last week against the Colts, and we've seen this Dallas offense and their passing game struggle at times. throughout the season. So I feel like it's a pretty even matchup. But I'm gonna pick the Steelers here at home, and the main reason is because if the Cowboys are able to stick around, don't think they'll have Micah Parsons and they won't have Demarcus Lawrence, two of their, on the defensive side of the ball, two staples, arguably two of their best players, especially in that front seven. And this Cowboys defense hasn't looked all that good this year, except for maybe the Giants. But I mean, Malik Neighbors was still able to get his, so still showed some weaknesses. And then you take away their two best edge rushers, their two best players in the front seven, that just adds a lot more questions. And with this Steelers offense, what they're looking to do, run the ball, make Justin Fields a game manager, hit the quick reads, the pickings, and maybe take a deep shot down the field. But they want to just control the game, play good defense, and run the ball. And the Cowboys, if they don't have Michael Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence there to help stop that run and help control the offensive game plan, I think the Steelers go up maybe like 7 points, go up 3 points, and that might be all they need, especially with this Steelers defense. We saw them struggle a little bit, but TJ Watt is still there, an elite pass rusher. He can take over the game at any point. Their front seven is really, really good. Patrick Queen and those guys at the linebacker flying around, and Minka back there, solid secondary. So I like what the Steelers have on defense. I think it'll propose more of a challenge for the Cowboys offensively. Whereas on the flip side, some key injuries might cause the Cowboys to struggle a little bit more, and the Steelers can kind of lean into what they want to do more offensively. So home game, I think it'll be a close one. I can see it going either way, but give me the Steelers and their defense to get a bounce back game here at home.
Yeah, if there's, no disagreement in terms of that Steelers defense before last week looked amazing. Justin Fields, he's done a tremendous job so far for what the Steelers have asked him to do. They've leaned on that run game. They've leaned on the play calling. It's been good so far in Pittsburgh. They got the best game out of Justin Fields last week. Still a loss, but you liked what you saw from Justin Fields. But once again, man, you saw Joe Flacco kind of tear up that team defensively. Dak Prescott, he's supposed to be that NFL, NFC, top tier quarterback. We've seen him early on this year struggle compared to years previous, where he is the NFL regular season guy. He's up there in the MVP conversation year in and year out for what he does in the regular season statistically. I can't see Jerry's World going 2-3 at this point, especially against the Steelers. I mean, it's going to be serious because the Commanders could run away with that division. Something I know you'd like to see, something I'd like to see, but Cowboys fans start going crazy for the way their team's played. But I'm gonna pick
I would
them.
not like to see the Commanders run away with that division.
No, but I'm saying like the Cowboys going down. I was gonna say they're in
Oh,
third place,
yeah,
but
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think they're in third place now, so
no, yeah, but like
keep them there.
finish it. Yeah, I was gonna say Commanders 1, Eagles 2, and sorry, but give me the
Eagles won, man.
Cowboys. Another gut feeling the Steelers lose. Said it last week. It happened. Don't know. Give me the Cowboys. Monday Night Football, man. Saints Chiefs back to one game a night at Arrowhead. Your pick.
I mean, at this point, is there really like anything else to say about the Chiefs, bro? Other than they just find ways to win now. Whether you want to, thank the refs for helping them or whatever else you got going
It's
on.
gonna happen.
I would say there's some question marks there in the receiving core, but we literally saw them win a Super Bowl last year with less. So as long as Patrick Mahomes is back there taking snaps and Andy Reid is calling plays and their defense is playing good enough, the Chiefs are just gonna win, bro. Like I don't know what else to say, bro. The Chiefs are gonna beat the Saints. They just are.
I'm right there with you. I mean, the Saints, they've come back down to earth. They haven't looked too good. As hot as they started, they they look questionable. The Falcons have been struggling. You saw them last week outside that muff punt. They had a legit shot to win that game, but to be neck and neck against that team that has struggled so far this year in the Falcons, not what you want to see when you were the NFC South powerhouse to start the season off clicking on every cylinder. Teams have taken away that Shaheed deep ball right now, forcing Derek Carr to throw the middle intermediate routes, not get in rhythm. Seen a different Saints team so far, and Kamara not scoring 6 touchdowns in a game. So totally different. Take away those guys. The Chiefs, they're gonna get it done. You mentioned last year, no receivers. McCole Hardman, he was the guy. Year before that against your Eagles, man, it was like KT getting in the end zone. They're gonna find a way, man. They're gonna find a way. Carson Steele is not the answer. I think Samaje P. Ryan needs to take the workload, but
Your boy Kareem Hunt will be back there taking some
yeah,
carries.
that too. Rookie year Kareem Hunt, turf tape Hunt,
I think
whatever
they
you
get
want.
Edwards-Helaire back too
Yeah,
this week.
I saw something like he was out for PTSD.
Yeah, he was like on the non-injury exempt list or something like that. But
Yeah,
this after week 4, he's able to come back. So we'll see what they do with that.
yeah. Hope he's doing good, whatever he's dealing with. But you still have Xavier Worthy on the outside with the injury to Rashee Rice. Jason Kelsey at some point he's gonna get a game where you're like, oh, wait, is Kelsey back?
Jason
Um,
Kelsey, I wish he'd come back.
Travis Kelsey. Did I say Jason?
Yeah,
Um, Travis Kelsey. I was gonna tell all the Swifties to lay off the Twitter film work, but that's been going around. Regardless, Chiefs, they're gonna win, bro. I mean, Andy
yeah. I
Reid,
mean,
the
if
refs,
it was
Pat
any other
Mahomes.
team, I'd have question marks about how they've been winning. They've been winning ugly. You can't sustain this. Mahomes turning the ball over, but
So,
the Chiefs
what,
are
three,
just gonna
four
win, bro.
years? Like,
They're just gonna win, bro.
yeah, that's gonna wrap up our week 5 pick'ems and go episode 106, man. Go to go pod, TikTok, go to go, everything else. You got any last comments you want to say, man?
Um, Eagles don't play football this week, and I'm kind of excited.
Go
That's it.
Guardians, man. Playoff baseball getting kicked off. We'll be back, man. I know you got your little Dodgers over there too, so we'll see about
Yeah,
that.
facts,
But
facts. You got the Dodgers hat on, man. Go
my
Dodgers.
Cleveland hat in the back. I should have brought it up. But go episode 106. Until next week, man. Peace.